Everyone laughed the moment she walked into the room, her shoes torn, her clothes faded, and her resume held together with a paperclip. 33 confident candidates sat across from her, whispering behind polished suits and shiny heels. No one knew her story, but by the end of the day, the CEO would rise from his chair, look at every person in that room, and say the words no one expected. I choose her. What happened in the hours between that moment and the final decision is a story you'll never forget. Book Chapter 1, The Girl with Torn Shoes. The rain had already soaked through Alina's worn-out shoes by the time she reached the 22nd floor of Silvercore Technologies, one of the largest software companies in the city. She paused near the glass door, taking a shaky breath. Her reflection looked back. A 24-year-old woman, thin from skipping meals, dark circles under her eyes, hair tied in a simple ponytail, and clothes ironed at dawn with an old metal iron that barely worked. But what stood out most were her shoes. The left one was torn at the front, exposing just a hint of her sock. She had tried fixing it with glue, thread, even tape, but nothing held. She entered the lobby anyway. People turned. Some stared. Some smirked. A few whispered. She heard someone snort behind her. Did she walk here from the 90s? Look at her shoes, OMG. She seriously thinks she stands a chance. Alina lowered her eyes and sat silently in the waiting area. She had rehearsed every possible interview question for weeks. There were 33 candidates. All looked confident. All looked richer, sharper, and more prepared. But none of them knew she hadn't slept the night before. At home, her mother lay sick on the floor mattress. Medicines were expensive. Alina had spent their last savings on travel fare for this interview. If she didn't get the job, she wasn't sure how they would survive another month. Her fingers trembled around the folder she held. Inside it were her certificates, top grades, volunteer projects, creative work samples. But the edges were worn and soft from years of being moved from place to place. Candidate number 17, please, the receptionist called. Alina stood. Someone whispered loudly enough for the room to hear. At least her shoes will break before she reaches the chair. A few people laughed. She didn't respond, but the receptionist did. She gave the laughing candidate a cold, unimpressed stare. Alina entered the large conference room, bright white walls, long wooden table, 6 panelists on one side, a single chair on the other. She sat carefully, hoping the torn shoe wouldn't catch anyone's attention. But one man noticed. At the far end of the table sat a well-dressed man in his late 40s, wearing a simple watch and no ego on his face. His nameplate said, Zaid Khan, Chief Executive Officer. While others glanced at her appearance, he looked only at her eyes. Alina, he began gently, tell us something about yourself that is not on your resume. Her throat tightened. She hadn't expected such a question. She took a breath. I learned everything I know because life forced me to, she said. I don't have much, but I have never backed down from any challenge. And I'm here today because I refuse to let my circumstances define my future. There was silence. Some panelists nodded. Others scribbled notes. But the CEO, he watched her with a kind of interest none of the other candidates had earned yet. The next 2 hours were brutal. One by one the candidates were called, questioned, tested, pushed. Some stumbled. Some bragged. Some froze under pressure. When it was her turn again, she faced technical tests, problem-solving challenges, and personal questions. She answered every single one, calmly, honestly, and with surprising insight. Near the end, one panelist intentionally asked a condescending question. Don't you think you should gain a little more polish before applying here? Alina looked down at her torn shoes. She knew exactly what he meant. No, sir, she replied softly. I think what I need is opportunity. And when you give that to someone who has survived enough hardship, they don't just work. They fight for the chance they've been given. The CEO's pen stopped midair. He smiled faintly. There was something about her that none of them could ignore anymore. Book Chapter 2, The CEO's Decision. Hours passed. The sun dipped low. A long silence filled the waiting area as all 33 candidates waited for the results. People chatted nervously. Some laughed. Some bit their nails. Some scrolled on their phones. Alina sat quietly, hands in her lap, shoes pointed inward so no one saw the tear. She didn't expect to win. She only wanted a chance. Finally the door opened. The CEO himself stepped out. Everyone straightened. Phones slipped into pockets. Smiles appeared almost instantly. He looked at the group slowly, thoughtfully. "We reviewed all your tests," he said. "We considered experience, skills, and presentation." Some candidates tilted their chins proudly. "But today," he continued, "I was looking for something else too, character." A hush fell. He paused in front of Alina. Some people stared at her in disbelief. Others frowned in confusion. "She walked in today," the CEO said, "and every one of us could see that she didn't come from ease or comfort. Yet she faced every question with courage. She didn't hide her flaws. She didn't pretend. And she didn't give us excuses, only solutions." He turned to the crowd. "I choose her." Gasps. Murmurs. Shock. Someone whispered angrily. "Seriously? The girl with the torn shoes?" The CEO answered without even turning. "Yes. Because shoes can be fixed. Skills can be trained. Potential can be developed. But sincerity, integrity, resilience, you either have them, or you don't." Alina's eyes filled with tears. She covered her mouth, overwhelmed. The CEO walked back to her and handed her the offer letter personally. "I've been where you are," he said quietly. "I know what it feels like to start with nothing. But people like us, we climb higher because we've already learned how to survive the fall." Her tears spilled. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me," he replied. "Just prove me right." She nodded, because she knew